As Shavuot is approaching, and the custom, the universal custom in Klal Yisrael, is that people eat dairy products on Shavuot, we'll discuss certain practical applications that have to do with milk and meat, and especially as it relates to Shavuot, mixing different foods, milk and meat, and different halachot relevant to that. So the Rama brings in Siman Tav Tzadi Dalid Seif Gimel ונוהגים בכמה מקומות לאכול מאכלי חלב ביום ראשון של שבועות. The minhag in many places, in some places, and it's really in many places, is to eat milchik foods on Shavuot. On the first day of Shavuot, he writes, and the reason is, like we see that there are two tavshilin, there are two dishes on Lil Pesach, Zecher LePesach, Zecher LeChagiga, so too, one has first milk and then meat in regards to the shtei alechem that there are the two breads that one brings, the shtei alechem. Other reasons the Acharonim bring is because dvash vechalav tachat leshonech, Torah is sweet like milk, and there are many other reasons that are brought down. I'm not going to expand on that. Indeed, the Shayari Knesset HaGdolah, one of the great Sephardic Acharonim, writes that he had a minhag to have milk together with honey. Till today, there are communities that have milchik meals on Shabbat. There are communities like that, and Turkish communities. There are communities in Morocco, brought down in the Sefer Noeg B'Chochma, of having milk, some milk dishes, and also in Tunisia, brought down in the Sefer Ali Hadas, was that when they come back from synagogue in the morning, they would have milk. So it's definitely found, and each person has their custom. And even if somebody wants to keep on, he has his regular meat meals on Shavuot, but the custom is still had to have some milk after Kiddush to fulfill this minhag. Now, many times, a person only has one oven. He has a meat oven, and he doesn't necessarily want to go through the process of koshering his meat oven in order to bake, to make milk. It's just not worth it for him. So let's say one bakes a chalot or makes a cake in a meat oven. Does the cake automatically become milchik? And even if it doesn't become literally milchik, because you're not allowed to make milchik bread, which is another topic, but one is allowed to have that cake together with his coffee and milk. So the question is one allowed to have cake that was baked in a meat oven together with milk, dunk the cake in his milk coffee? So here there is a discussion in the poskim. What is the status of an oven in regards to imparting meat taste inside the food? The Rama, in the end of Yoredea Siman Tzadi Bet, in the end of Siman Tzadi Bet in Yoredea, discusses a concept called Ze'ah. And the source of this Rama is brought down in the Bet Yosef, quoting the She'elot Utshuvot of the Rosh. And there, it's discussed that there's a concept that when somebody is cooking food, there is ze'ah. That means there is steam that is rising from that food. And there are sources, and the Gaon Mivilna brings many sources from the Mishnayot and Taharot, that ze'ah milta, that the steam is like the thing itself. For example, if somebody is cooking a meat dish, or a milk, actually the case of the Rama is a milk dish, and hanging on top of the milk dish is a salami. So the steam of the milk dish will absorb into the salami, and the salami will become a bona fide basar v'chalav. And that's the halacha. The question is that when somebody cooks a meat roast in an oven, does the ze'ah does the steam go into the walls, and in turn they make the walls into a meat wall, and they could impart taste back into whatever else it is that's being cooked there, because ze'a miltahi, and sometimes you don't even clean out the oven. There could really be steam over there. So there was a difference of approach in the Acharonim, whether the steam that we have in our ovens is called a substantial amount of steam, similar to the case of the Ramah, when somebody has steam that rose up and got absorbed into the salami. The poskim the later day poskim in Yerushalayim were more machmir. The poskim in Bnei Brak were more lenient. It is said that Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach understood that steam in an oven is called steam. Other poskim in Bnei Brak understood that it got all burnt up and it's not called steam. Rav Moshe Feinstein is quoted as saying, it depends on different teshuvot, that if the elements of the fire are above, then that burns the steam, and then it's not called ze'ah. Otherwise, there would be ze'ah. Many of the Sephardic poskim also understood that steam in ovens is not substantial enough to forbid the food, because we don't say that in our ovens the amount of steam that there is called steam, and therefore there is ample room to be lenient. And we're going to see that there's going to be a couple of reasons. But if somebody cooks a cake, even if he has in mind that it should be eaten together with his milk, he is allowed. In other words, so the halacha is that if somebody bakes a cake inside a meat oven, he can have that cake with milk. And there are a couple of reasons. Number one, there are poskim that say that there is no ze'ah in ovens. Nowadays, our ovens don't have ze'ah, especially if you have an element of a fire on top. Number two is that it's not going to be any worse than notentam bar notentam, which we're going to see in a moment, according to the Sephardic poskim is allowed, and even lechatechila is allowed. And this is talking about even if the oven is a ben yomo, that means within 24 hours, meat was cooked in the oven. That is the status of oven. So if somebody has chalot that he baked in his meat oven, he could use it for his milk meal, and he could spread a cream cheese on it. The next topic is, let's say somebody doesn't use an oven, but somebody has a pot, and he wants to make a lot of pasta and noodles in the pot, and afterwards transfer those noodles into a milk plate and put cheese on those noodles. But the only pot that he has that's large enough for all these noodles is a meat pot. And not only that meat pot was used within 24 hours to cook meatballs in it. Can somebody use that pot lechatechila in order to make something that's parve, that is not meat or not milk, like pasta, and then transfer it and put milk over it? And the question over here is called Ha'im efshar ligrom nat barnat lechatechila. Is one allowed to cause a double transfer of tastes lechatechila? In other words, in mind to have it with milk. The Gemara in Masechet Chulin discusses the topic of notentam bar notentan in Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Bet. And it says that it's a case about a fish that came onto a meat plate. You're allowed to eat that fish with cheese. Mutar leochlan dagim shalu bekiara, mutar leochlan bekutach, because that fish is notentam bar notentam. Not discussing the details of having fish with milk. That's another discussion. But what we see from over here is that notentam bar notentam is allowed. And there's a discussion in the Rishonim, are you allowed to do it even lechatechila or not? Maran, in the Bet Yosef, doesn't talk about whether you're allowed to be gorem nat bar nat lechatechila. But in the Bedek HaBayit, which was written by Rav Yosef Karo, but it was a later additions and addendums, we'll call it, to the Bet Yosef, quotes sources that one is allowed to be gorem nat barnat lechatechila. So the Bet Yosef quotes in the Bedek HaBayit quotes that one is allowed to be gorem nat barnat lechatechila. And there's a discussion among the Sfardi Acharonim whether Maran Shulchan Aruch would have permitted lechatchila what he wrote in the Bedek HaBayit, or we don't follow what's written in the Bedek HaBayit because that was written later on, and we just follow what's written in the Shulchan Aruch, and the Shulchan Aruch never permits it explicitly, although he doesn't forbid it, but he doesn't permit it explicitly, so we won't allow it. So the first approach is to take a stringent approach to this and say that, of course, if the pasta was cooked in a meat pot, then one could use it with cheese. But one is not allowed lechatechila, that means to go ahead and with the knowledge that he is going to have the pasta with milk to cook in a meat pot. That much one should not do. And this is the opinion of the great chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, Rabbi Shalom Mesas. In many places, in Shemesh Umagen, Chelek Aleph, Siman Chet, he discusses this, and in other places as well. And he has a sefer that he wrote in his teen years called Mizrach Shemesh on Yoredea, and in Siman Tzadihe of Yoredea he discusses this, and he says that we only accepted what's written in the Bet Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch, not in the Bedek HaBayit. And since the Bedek HaBayit is written later, who says that that's what we follow, we only are going to permit nat barnat when it's done b'di'avad, not lechatechila. And this is the opinion of the Shach as well, and we are not going to follow the Bedek HaBayit. On the other hand, other Sephardic poskim didn't understand that this should be the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. First of all, the Bedek HaBayit was written by the Bet Yosef as well, and Rav Ovadia Yosef's position in the Yabia Omer, Chelek Tet Yoredea Siman Daled Od Gimel, says that not only we accepted what's written in the Bet Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch, but also in the Bedek HaBayit. The truth is that even if one wants to go with the approach of Rabbi Shalom Mesas, that we only accept what's written in the Bet Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch, the Bet Yosef doesn't write that one is not, the Shulchan Aruch never writes that one is not allowed. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't discuss this at all. And it could be the Bedek HaBayit was just clarifying that it should be allowed, but not that it should, but not that he is coming to argue on what was said beforehand. Indeed, Rabbi Shlomo Amar, the previous chief rabbi Yerushalayim and Shema Shlomo Chelek Aleph Yoredea Siman Bet, also understands that one is allowed to cook lechatechila into a meat pot in order to have with milk, like the opinion of Rav Ovadia Yosef, which would mean that, practically speaking, if somebody has that meat pot, one would allow lechatchila to cook his pasta in order to have with milk. If the pot is eno ben yomo, even Rabbi Shalom Mesas is of the opinion that there's no problem that one could use that pot. And many Ashkenazi poskim, based on the Chayei Adam, agree with this, but they stipulate that it's only if you don't have another pot. If you have another pot, even eno ben yomo, you should use the other pot. However, if you don't have another pot, you could use an eno ben yomo, a pot that's more than 24 hours, meat wasn't cooked, in order to have the pasta with milk. But as mentioned, the Sfaradi poskim, many Sfaradi poskim, and this is there's a strong opinion this way that one would be allowed lechatechila to cook the pasta in order to have it with milk. So that is details on nat barnat. One more detail that comes up often is we know that the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Petet is posek like the Tur and the Rambam, that if one has meat, he has to wait 6 hours in order to have milk. But if one has milk, it's not written anywhere in the Shulchan Aruch that one has to wait. The Rama brings down certain customs. The Ben Ish Chai brings that if cheese was aged, according to the months that it was aged, that's how long you should wait. So if you have cheese that was aged 2 months, He says the minhag in Baghdad was to wait 2 hours, 3 months, 3 hours. But if somebody doesn't have such a custom, any cheese that he eats, as long as he washes his mouth afterwards or has a piece of bread, he is allowed afterwards to have meat, as long as it's not in the same seudah. That is if one has milk and then he wants to have meat. However, if one has meat and he has to wait 6 hours, is one allowed to take food that has absorptions of milk and eat them within the 6 hours? Now, the question is the following. Although we said that nat barnat is allowed, sometimes there are cases of a davar charif. For example, if one used a knife that had milk in it, it was absorptions of milk, and one cut onions. And those onions have absorptions of milk. So it's not mamash milk, but one wants to have those onions within the 6 hours that he had meat. So here it's an interesting case. That although if somebody would eat those onions, and in a reverse case, let's say one would have onions that had absorptions of meat through a knife, so it's a davar charif, that wouldn't make him fleishik. That wouldn't make him into basari that he'd have to wait 6 hours. But the other way around, if somebody is already basari, he cannot consume these onions that have absorptions of milk within the 6 hours. This is what the Pri Megadim writes in Hilchot Shavuot, Siman Tav Tzadihei. He writes this halacha in Orach Chaim Hilchot Shavuot, that if one has a meat status, he can't consume onions that have an absorption of milk. It is said that the great Gaon Rav Elyashiv said that the halacha is like this Pri Megadim. So these are a few halachot in regards that one could come to basar v'chalav in the kitchen that one should be aware, especially as it relates to Shavuot. Chazak u'baruch.